Time, of course, is a healer. It doesn't take it away or change anything, but it takes off the raw edges. And I can talk about it now without completely breaking down.
There never a day goes by that I don't think about my daughter in one form or another, and I love to talk about her. The sad thing is that some people in this particular position don't want to talk to her. They try to shut that child out, and this is what we're trying to get them not to do.
How can you say they're not guilty?
You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know.
The system has failed because it has not been more aware, more alert.
These mothers and fathers are suffering a personal grief barely endurable, and they meet regularly for emotional support. At this session, they receive some insight into the criminal justice system from Erie County District Attorney Richard Arcara. They are the parents of murdered children.
Automatically, they're going to appeal this. He was sentenced 25 years to life. They're going to appeal it. I said, I want grounds. Well, they'll think of some grounds. Now, if he had been found innocent, we have no appeal.
Why does this guy, was he out and then he got a bail from Rochester, and then he comes out and he killed my daughter? I'm sure you're familiar.
I'm very familiar with the case, and we did everything that we could do in that case.
The judge did not even read the case, and that judge should be convicted for not reading the case. You're not kidding. He should go to jail too.
The system has failed in this regard, and we that are part of the system, I like to feel that, you know, we have to do more, and we have to open up the eyes of the courts more to what is really going on. Behind these cases are people who have suffered, and many times, as I said, because the system has failed. The system has failed because it has not been more aware, more alert to the potential for this type of activity.
Mina and Richard Nydrower were the parents of 29-year-old Deborah Ann, a biology major who lived with her sister in Santa Clara, California. Tragedy struck on her first day on the job as a caretaker in that city's Fremont Park. On July 23, 1979, while eating her lunch on a park bench, a mental patient from a nearby halfway house stabbed her to death with a screwdriver. The Nydrowers helped found the local chapter of Parents of Murdered Children.
We go around the room and we each tell who we are and why we are there, and we tell the story of our child's murder. And it seems that each time you tell it, it's a little easier.
What kind of emotions were felt initially?
Disbelief that something like this had happened, because Debbie was in a park in a lovely neighborhood, and you know, things like this just don't happen. And then, of course, anger that it could happen, because the man who killed Debbie should not have been out on the street.
It's an earthquake when this thing happens, and it's part of the time that passes. There's some healing, but there never a day goes by that I don't think about my daughter.
Another co-founder of the local chapter is Mrs. Amy Averill of Kenmore. She was the mother of 37-year-old Terrence Mills, who had both a law degree and a master's degree in historic preservation. Terry worked as an urban planner for Buffalo's Central City Restoration. On October 14, 1980, he was walking to his car on Pearl Street when robbed of his wallet at knife point. The assailant wasn't satisfied and stabbed him to death.
I still am very angry. It was a senseless killing and a senseless death. And many deaths you can find an answer to it. If someone is ill and suffering, and even an accident you can accept. But this was it was just an absolutely senseless act, and that's very hard to accept.
Does such a tragedy alter your view of our criminal justice system?
Certainly does. We sat, it took a year to catch the man. He had fled the state. And we'd gotten to the point where they never were going to get him. But finally they did. And they brought him back, and then we sat through 2 trials. In sitting through those 2 trials, it was very obvious, which I think we all know if we've done any reading at all, that our criminal justice is weighted very much in favor of the criminal. It seemed almost as though they wanted the victim, my son, to just kind of remain nameless and faceless in the courtroom.
In our case, the man that murdered Debbie was a mental patient. I can have some empathy for him more than I could for a so-called sane person that does something like this. The frustration we have is the court system that allowed a man that had a mental history for,
10 years.
close to 10 years. He had had a mental discharge from the Navy and things like this. This man was allowed out.
Is there a telephone number one can call if they need help?
Yes, the telephone number is the Life and Death Transition Center, which is 881-5182. And our meetings are the 3rd Friday of each month at the Plymouth United Church of Christ, which is on the corner of Lincoln Parkway and Amherst in Buffalo. And everybody is welcome.
What words of advice would you give to parents who may have experienced a similar tragedy in their lives?
I would say join a group. Find someone who's been through the same thing that you can talk about it with. Because really, talking and getting it all out is so much healthier than keeping it inside of you. It can make you sick if you just keep it in and don't talk about it.